This is episode 18 with Matt Miller.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
Hey, Men of Abundance. Today's conversation with Matt Miller is just more proof that every time I say you need a side hustle, this is living proof. Now I'm going to get into Matt's bio in just a minute, but this man was an Air Force pilot, gets out into the corporate world, and does his very best. He's a high performer. He just cannot be mediocre. But being a high performer ended up costing his family $80,000 the following year. Why? We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Before we get into that, I want to talk about the benefits of you checking out the show notes of this show. These aren't your average show notes. I've seen many show notes for many podcasts, and there's some great websites and great show notes out there for other podcasts. But one thing that I'm different that I have on my show notes is timestamps. This is really cool technology. So when you click on the timestamps, it will take you directly to that portion of the audio in the podcast that you want to listen to. So if you want to just go directly to, for instance, Matt's kick in the gut moment, or you want to go see what his top 3 actionable steps are, or you want to go find out what books he's reading and he suggests, you just click on that timestamp. It goes directly to that portion of the audio, and you can just listen to that portion. In addition to that, I have a few Twitter stamps directly in the show notes. All you have to do is click directly on that Twitter stamp. Yeah, I said Twitter stamp, not the other one. And it will open up your Twitter, and you will be able to send that directly from your phone or your computer or whatever. Don't have to type anything. Just tweet it right out on your account. It's that simple. That's pretty sweet, right? Well, I think so anyway, but then again, I'm easily amused. Matt Miller spent the first 9 years of his career as an Air Force pilot before entering the private sector to work in both the medical device and advertising industries. While a top performer in the corporate world, his long-term desire was to own his own business and to be his own boss. A good friend one day mentioned the gumball machine he and his young daughters owned, and that conversation began a 10-year business quest that has brought Matt's company, Spirit Vending, to the cutting edge of both the vending and school fundraising industries. I know you're going to love this conversation. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Wally, thanks for having me on, man.
Man, it's my pleasure. I really love what I've seen so far, and I couldn't wait to get you on the show to talk to you a little bit more, because while this is not a military show as things go, me being my background being military, I seem to attract a lot of military into my life.
Yeah, I can relate.
And onto the show as well. And some folks I didn't even know were military. One of Thomas O'Grady, who I had on the show, I didn't even know he was military. And he was military during the Vietnam era, and it came out during the show. I was like, it's pretty interesting that happens all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
So where are you at right now? Where are you at in the world?
I'm in Central Texas, a little town called Stephenville, which is about an hour and a half southwest of Fort Worth.
You know, I've spent a lot of time in Texas, and I was Central Texas for a while at Fort Hood and Killeen. Not a fun place to be, by the way, for me anyway. But it seems like every time I talk to somebody from Texas, they always mention a little town that I've never heard of, and that's one of them.
Well, Texas is a really, really big place, and there's a lot of wide open spaces, and a lot of people like myself like to have some space and some peace and quiet and see the stars at night. So, you know, to be kind of out in the middle of nowhere is a real pleasure most of the time. So
nice. It sounds really nice. It does. And I know the stars are very bright out in little places like that.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So I went over a little bit of your bio before the show got started and talked a little bit about you and what you shared with me and what I know of you, but I want to hear it from you, and I would like to hear you get a little bit personal about your background and kind of slowly work your way up to where you're at today.
So I grew up in the Chicago area, and when I graduated from high school, was fortunate to get an opportunity to get a nomination and appointment to the Air Force Academy. Entered with the class of 1989, in the summer of 1985 and spent 4 years at the academy going through school and getting my degree. Ended up graduating, like I said, June of 1989, and was fortunate enough to get a pilot training slot where I went on to pilot training out in Lubbock, Texas for a year, and did well enough to be asked to come back and be an instructor pilot for the first 5 years of my career. So I flew T-38s out of Reese Air Force Base in Lubbock. It's not there anymore, but was at the time. And then moved on and flew C-5 transports out of Dover, Delaware for 3 years before I got out in 1998. I realized that I didn't like being told what to do, and the military wasn't a very good place to be if that was the case. So I thought, man, I'm going to try this corporate thing and maybe make some more money and have some more freedom. And, both those things were true. But what I found out is the rules were constantly being changed. And there was still, a large amount of control exerted over my life with whatever my career was that I chose. So I started trying to figure out a way to do some things on my own. We got ourselves into a real bad hole financially about 10 years ago. And I realized I needed to start doing some stuff on the side. So initially I sold aluminum cans or collected them and, traded them in for money. I sold used books online for a while. My garage looked like a library at one point in time. Did a bunch of things just to help keep a roof over our family's head and food on the table. But I had read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a couple years prior. And in reading that book, I bought into his whole concept of passive income and making money while you sleep. And so everything I was doing, it was helping pay the bills, but none of it was passive in nature like he talks about. And I couldn't even afford to own my own house at the time, let alone have rental property, which is a lot of what he talks about. So I started looking and trying to figure out another way that I could affordably do the same thing. And had a buddy of mine from church mention vending and gumball machines, and he and his young daughters getting a couple machines and setting them in locations in the local area and making some money together and doing business and family together at the same time. And I remember that conversation. I was like, well, gumballs are only a quarter, and it's going to take a lot of them to get me out of the hole I'm in. But the machines do all the selling. I can continue my career and just do this on the side on nights and weekends. And so I bought my first used candy and gumball machine on eBay for about $36. I had about $100, to get started in business at that point in time, and got busy putting things together and knocking on doors, figuring out the whole vending thing. And fast forward about a year and a half, I had about 120 locations on the north side of Houston. Had ventured into toys and temporary tattoos and stickers and that type of thing by that point. And then 07 and 08 hit, and the economy collapsed. People stopped frequenting a lot of the businesses where I had equipment. And so, the revenue numbers dropped off significantly. And right around that time, I had a couple young kids come selling me stuff, fundraising for the local schools. And I thought that was kind of odd because I had kids the same age, and there's no way I'd let my kids go door to door knocking on strangers' doors selling stuff. So I thought, well, maybe there's a way to get some kids off the street. And oh, by the way, since kids are there 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year, I wouldn't have to worry as much about the fluctuations of the economy. And came up with this whole idea of stickers and sticker machines and custom designing mascot stickers for schools. And that's where this whole thing got started. October next month, or 2 months from now, will be 9 years ago, believe it or not.
Wow, that's amazing how you kind of evolved into that whole thing. And I'm right there with you. I've done so many different things, from trading cards to all kinds of stuff. And most of it really ended up costing a little bit more money than what I was making, or at least it wasn't worth my time. Let's put it that way. But, with the kids coming to your door, we were definitely in different times, because growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, one of the first kind of entrepreneurial things, I guess you'd say, that I did was I used to sell candy door to door and other small items. And there was this guy literally used to pick us up in a white van We'd sit in the back of the van. He'd take us out to some neighborhood where people would buy stuff, because they certainly weren't buying stuff in the neighborhood I grew up in. And he would drop us off on a corner and say, okay, you go that way, you go that way, you go that way. I'll meet you back here in an hour or two. And we would go door to door selling stuff, and I'd meet up with this random guy in a white van and go back home. Can you imagine something like that happening today?
You know, I don't know if things are worse today or if it's just we're more aware because of the 24-hour news cycle. But, and you know, there's no way. In fact, your parents would probably be turned into CPS, and you know, right. I mean, it's just a completely different world today. Obviously.
And I think you're right. Your analysis is correct in that it's probably not a whole lot worse. And I've said this quite a few times. It really is that most of this stuff is more prevalent in our face every day when it does happen. So the sticker, how is that working out for you with the sticker vending?
I mean, it's surpassed my wildest dreams and imagination by a wide margin. You know, we're a franchise today. We started out, like I said, almost 9 years ago, just me with an idea, started having buddies take an interest in what we were doing and wanting to be a part, and started showing other people how to do what we do. And initially it was a distributorship and licensing model. About 14 or 15 months ago, we transitioned to a franchise, and we're growing faster today than we ever have before, and are growing in parts of the country where we never thought we'd grow before, because most of our growth early on was just word of mouth, friends and family, and that type of thing. But we've, you know, we're in over 2,000 schools today in 30 or so states, and have a franchise team of about 70 people or so. And I mean, it's crazy what's transpired in the last 9 years, and you know, never thought in my wildest dreams that, you know, this former Air Force pilot would come up with this idea that no one had thought of before, and would get the traction that it's getting.
Yeah, and you started this whole thing from scratch yourself?
Yep.
Wow.
The whole concept and everything from ground zero.
And it's a great concept. I'm absolutely loving it. When I saw the vending machines, I thought at first it was just the top part of the vending machine. And Men of Abundance, we'll have the links to his website and everything in the show notes, but you got to see this. The top of the vending machine has basically the logo and the mascot and whatever the school wants as part of their branding. And then, of course, many of the stickers that are in the vending machine are specific to that school or wherever you have the vending machines at, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. So 9 years. I'm sure everything went just absolutely perfect, but I'm guessing you had a few kick in the gut moments along the way. I would like to hear that story.
You know, I would say the biggest one, Wally, was when I was still trying to figure this whole thing out. I was working in the corporate space. In the advertising world at that point. My first full year with the company I was at, I ended up being number 2 in the country out of 750 reps. I was able to apply my military training and some other training along the way, but also, you know, was a little bit right place at the right time. Well, my boss thought I got accolades a little bit too quickly, and so the next year, my quota was not increased 5 or 10%, which was kind of the average in the office. My quota was increased over 90%. Well, that decision cost my family about $80,000 the next year. And I went from being a hero to a zero, and, you know, our pay plummeted, and overnight we were in a huge hole financially with no hope of being able to work out of it, just looking at the corporate, you know, compensation plan. So that's when I started trying to figure this thing out. You know, I got to a point, Wally, where I literally got turned down for a payday loan. Now, you don't need a credit rating for a payday loan, but you do have to have a bank statement that shows no overdraft charges in the month prior. And I had 3 overdrafts the month prior just trying to make ends meet. So I got turned down here, you know, quote unquote, America's finest Air Force Pilot Academy grad gets turned down for a couple $100. You know, along the way, as we worked our way out, you know, I had to cash flow the business. I bought equipment used when I could, and slowly but surely put that thing together. But there was even a point where I needed even more money because of the growth we were seeing. that I ended up probably going through one of the most humbling experiences I've ever been in my life. I walked into a new Pizza Hut in our area and asked for a job as a delivery driver. And so for a year and a half in Houston, I delivered pizzas all over my neighborhood. One of those summers, the air conditioning in my van was even out. So in the heat of the humid Houston summer, I had no relief whatsoever when I was driving around. But I didn't have any option. I didn't have any choice. I had to do what I had to do. And, I found that we all want to avoid struggle, but life is about struggle. And, we all have our own struggles. For some, it might be money. For some, it might be health. For some, it might be time or any number of other things. But the reality is we're all going to have them. And it's how we react to them that really determines, where we go in life. And so I wasn't a function of the struggles I was going through, and I didn't take it personally. I just realized that I just needed to figure some new things out and just got busy doing it.
There's a lot of kick in the gut moments that you just mentioned there, and it was just a series of events. And from what I get, it was kind of from that point to where you're this high achiever in the corporate world. And since you achieved so high, you basically got penalized the following year. And this is what a lot of corporations worldwide have already gone to. And a lot of corporations in the United States are going to a performance-based pay plan, basically. And you're getting paid based off of your performance. Even housekeepers in hotels, they're getting paid based on how many rooms they can turn each day, and that's what they're getting paid off. Not an hourly wage, but a performance based. And when you're in a commission type of environment, it's performance based. And if you do great, then you do penalized. But somebody like you, Matt, is like me. You're not status quo. You're the type of guy that wants to go out and do the best at whatever you do, and then they increase your performance expectations, which made a big difference. And that's why I'm always saying to do exactly what you did is have some sort of a side hustle, something going on the side. You're learning, even if you're just making a little bit of money like you were at the time, just barely making it profitable and worth your time. But you were growing towards that, and all of those things that you were doing as a side hustle on the side, turned into your current vending franchise, which I think is a big deal.
Wally, what I found is as my business grew, and by the way, nobody in my work had any idea I was doing it. The day that I put in my 2 weeks notice, I was one of the top performers in the office. My boss was completely floored. He thought that I was going through a midlife crisis and offered for me to take a sabbatical for 3 to 6 months because he thought I just had lost it. But the reality is, as my business grew, I was less and less willing to put up with the nonsense that when I didn't have anything else to fall back on, I gladly put up with because I didn't have any other choice. And I had to suck it up and do and follow through and do whatever they asked me to do. But as time went on, as the corporate thing, was less and less and less important in my family's finances, I got to live life much more fully and not put up with nearly as much guff because I didn't need it anymore. And my whole attitude changed because of that.
Good for you. Absolutely. And that's exactly what I see in folks that have some sort of side income like that. And the ones that I really wish, and even though they really don't have a whole lot of time, I try so much to talk to educators, especially grade school and high school educators. They're so busy during the day, they just don't get paid very much. But if anybody needed a side hustle, it would be them just for survival. But even in the corporate world, even if you enjoy your job and you enjoy what you're doing and the people you're working with, you just know you don't have to put up with so much stuff when you have something to fall back on and you know it's there. And that's amazing. And I can imagine your boss, it's funny because he wanted you to stick around because obviously you were producing for him, but he's kind of the reason that you left.
Well, it was actually a former manager. This guy was incredible. And I mean, I could not have had a better boss. But, by that point in time, I was a lost cause. I had, drunk the Kool-Aid. I was all in on this entrepreneur thing. It was just a matter of figuring it out for myself, and the clock ticking until that day when I was, going to walk away and do something else.
Yeah, so at that point you were unemployable, and that's what I got from the Robert Kiyosaki book that you mentioned, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and his whole series, Cash Flow Quadrant, and so on and so forth. And I found the same thing from that book as well. Great information. It definitely put the bug into my ear and into my heart and into my mind that I love the entrepreneurial mindset and the passive income, but it didn't show me a whole lot of what I needed to do. So that's why many other books came along. So what point was the pivot point of your business that really kind of turned it around and made it, did it skyrocket, or did it just kind of gradually, you just saw the numbers just going up?
It was a gradual thing, because all of us that, it was initially me and then another couple of guys that I had kind of exposed the idea to, and then some more, and then some more. We were all working full time though, and none of us had really had a whole lot of business experience. So, we had limited experience to work off of, and we kind of grew it as a side gig, with the plan of it always kind of being a side gig. Even if we decided to go full time, with a business like this, you can go part-time, full-time. So we didn't grow nearly as quickly as we could have, just because of our mindset. But what's happened in the last couple of years, as we become a franchise, we've attracted a whole new mindset of people in many cases, people who see this for what it can be, people who see it as an opportunity to run a business with their family, but who also see it as a way to grow something big. And so we've got guys getting started with backgrounds that just totally blow my mind, that are doing this and, aren't excited about getting to 100 schools, which is where we were back in the day, excited to get to. But, see this as a 500,000 or more location business in the next 3, 4, 5 years, and have the tools in place, are finding the people to help them execute. And man, it's crazy what's happening now. Of course, social media and some of the other marketing tools that are out there now are helping us accelerate a lot of what we do as well. We've only in the last couple of years really started, to utilize them to the fullest also. So it's an exciting time, man. It's crazy to think, that like I said earlier, that I figured this thing out, and that it's, being adopted nearly as quickly as it is.
Yeah, and I'm super happy for you, man. That's just really exciting to hear, and I can hear the passion and the joy in your voice. And so obviously you're spending much more time with family. You mentioned that you're amazed at the vocations or the background to the people that are coming to you to start their franchise. What's one of the craziest ones you've had so far?
Well, I've got a guy who heard me on a podcast a little over a year ago. He heads up a $300 million company.
Wow.
And he is excited about this. He's still doing his thing and will continue to do it for as long as he needs to. But he and his family are working this thing on the side. And, man, he's got big plans. And as quickly as he's putting this thing together, it's making look what I did and some of the early guys did, silly. But he comes from a different place with a different mindset, different attitude, different, circumstances and resources. And it's just fun. And it's an honor. It's a little humbling, to have guys like that say, hey, I want to be part of what you got, and share that same vision. It's pretty cool.
It is very cool. And he's definitely, one other thing he's got is he's definitely got a different network, a much more influential network, I'm sure. And I have a good idea of what the answer might be, but what do you think is his reasoning behind getting out of managing that large corporation or that large business and doing what you're doing?
Well, in this case, it's a family business, and he ends up playing the diplomat most of the time. And even though he does extremely well for himself, he's still an employee. And of course, there's limited upward mobility, and there's always that chance that you say the wrong thing or something changes and you know, the entire scenario can change for somebody like that in their position. So it's all about diversifying, right? And his situation is no different than yours and mine or anybody else's should be.
Yeah, and my point is in that the guy makes a lot of money. His income is quite high, but it's not always about the money. It's more about the time investment and how much time you're spending away from family. As we get older, our priorities change, and I've seen surgeons turn towards vending machines. I've seen attorneys turn towards multi-level marketing, you know, whatever. These people that have these large networks, they turn to something that they feel they're going to resonate more with and allow them to spend more time with family and just doing the things that they want to do. Because while they do make a lot of money, they also invest a lot of time and health, quite frankly.
Yep, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So we're getting ready to pay it forward here. I mean, you've already shared so much great information with us, but I'd like for you to pay it forward to Men of Abundance and kind of give them an idea of either what they could do to start a similar business like you've done in your experience, or even to get started in your business. So are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Abundant Leaders, I know some of you are looking for a side hustle. Many of you are not, and that's cool. But I always recommend some sort of a side hustle, some way to make a little bit of extra income or a lot of extra income, depending on what you want to do and how much time you have to put into something. The tax benefits alone of starting some sort of side hustle from your home should be incentive enough, but you don't want to start a side hustle for tax purposes alone. The perfect business, in my opinion, is one that solves a problem and fills a need and makes you a profit at the same time, something you will enjoy doing. Now, many people that I talk to, just like many of the guests that I've had on this show, end up doing something they had no idea they would enjoy doing. And why is that? It's because they tested the waters. They did something out of the norm and they realized, this is amazing. I never knew this opportunity was here. I'm going to follow through with this and I'm going to find out more about it and I'm going to learn this and master this. So I'm going to give you something that you can look at, and seriously, for a very limited time, only a couple more weeks, you will be able to get an inside look absolutely free at this brand new technology company. Now, it is a technology company. It is in the technology industry and in the travel industry, but you do not have to be technically inclined to participate and to partner with this company. So you can take it for a test drive, and the way that you can do that is to either go to the show notes of this episode or go to menofabundance.com, click on the resources tab, scroll down to side hustle, and click on the Hodo logo. That sounds funny. Click on that logo. It's going to take you to a 2.5-minute video. Watch that video and then join so that you can see if this side hustle is what you've been looking for. Now let's get back to the show. Awesome. So give Men of Abundance 1 to 3 actionable steps that Men of Abundance can take today.
You know, the first thing I would just tell them, Wally, is get started immediately. You know, there's too many people out there, unfortunately, that are thinking about getting ready to get started. You're never going to have all the answers. You got to get going, because chances are what you think you're going to be doing business-wise or what your model is going to be 180 degrees out from where you get started. But the only way you figure out how to make those shifts or those pivots is by getting in the game and working through it and responding to the marketplace. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, you know, get up early if you're not already. Man, get in a habit of rising early, getting a lot of stuff done in the morning before anybody around you is even remotely thinking about getting up. Because truly, you know, by breakfast time, you can have accomplished more than many will accomplish all day long, because their days are oftentimes full of distractions because of email and everybody else around them that they're having to interact with. You know, those would be the main things that I would tell folks. You know, as far as business and what we do, you know, if you're looking for something that you can work on the side that doesn't force you to make a decision between what you're doing full time and starting a side hustle, like Wally said. Check out what we're doing, whether it be School Spirit Vending as a franchise or whether it be just vending in general. I got started, like I said, with a $36 gumball machine and leveraged that growth and cash flow over time to have the business that I have today. If I can do it, you can do it too. I wrote a short ebook, Wally, if you don't mind. It's called Live Your Dreams, the top 10 reasons why you need to own a vending business. And if folks in your audience who are interested, just go to ssvbusiness.com/abundance. We set up a landing page just for your listeners. They can go find out a little bit more about what we do and download that ebook. And like I said, if nothing else, hopefully it'll get you thinking about other ways to make money, like vending, which most professionals don't ever really, look upon as a real business.
No, I appreciate that, Matt. That's very generous of you to provide that ebook. And I will have that posted in the show notes. And the show notes will be at menofabundance.com. Or you can just search Matt in the search bar there and you'll find it. And from the first actionable step that you said, I have a great quote that I've recently read from Richard Branson that talks exactly about that, which is, if someone offers you an amazing opportunity and you're not sure you can do it, say yes, then learn how to do it later. And that's true about either somebody offered you an opportunity or right now you're stumbling across what I think is a great opportunity for many people to get started with. So definitely, and then you have somebody like Matt and you're, right there with you to help you along the way. So definitely the best way to do it. So what daily habits make the biggest impact in your life, Matt?
Like I said, getting up early. Another thing is working out. For years I did not do that. And finally, I ran into and had lunch with Pat Flynn. I don't know if you know Pat at all.
Oh, man, I love Pat. Matter of fact, I was just talking with him. He was here in Hawaii on vacation, and I was chatting with him. And I believe if everything works out right, I'll have him on the show in September.
Awesome. Well, Pat's an amazing guy. I had lunch with him in San Diego November last year. And as we were talking about a bunch of things, he mentioned that he had a personal trainer. And what was unique about this guy is the fact that he's a virtual trainer. I know I've needed to work out, but I live too far away from the gym, and I just know my habit patterns. And in order for me to do it, it's got to be something that I can do easily. And so Pat said, well, hey, you should give Jeff a call. So I gave this guy a buzz. Pat had been working out with him for quite a while. And anyway, I told him, listen, Jeff, I'm not going to the gym. I don't have any weights. I need to be able to work out in my office because if it's not convenient, I won't do it. And he put together a workout, specifically for me. I now have a couple dumbbells and a stability ball and a yoga mat. But other than that, I'm able to do it all right here in my home. I strive for 5 days a week. And most weeks I'm at least 4, if not 5. And I mean, it's been a life changer for me, to get up and get active. And, I know my stamina is greater and I'm healthier because of it.
Absolutely. It's absolutely required, without a doubt. And just about every business person will tell you that they think better and feel better. And it myself included. And I've been the trainer as a virtual trainer, setting up Facebook groups and having everybody hold each other accountable in there and setting up programs for them, and primarily from a partner company that I partner with. But it's a great way for those of you who out there who are in a similar situation, can't make it. I don't like gyms personally, and I like to be able to work out in my house, or in my case on my back lanai or whatever, because I like to work out with my family, with my little guy. I'm a 6-year-old, and they don't allow 6-year-olds in the gym. So he's been my workout partner since he was 2. So it works out great. So you already mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a great book, but what other book would you recommend to men of abundant leaders, and why?
Another one, obviously, which would be the first on my list, would be the Bible, obviously. I mean, Absolutely. It's the foundation for I believe, all of us and why we're here. Aside from that, man, couple others. Of course, Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. If you haven't read that, you need to read that. And another one that was really transformational for me in the last year is Michael Gerber's E-Myth Revisited. Talks about the difference between a technician, a manager, and a true entrepreneur, and how most people who own businesses are truly technicians. And he talks about how to transition from being a technician to a true entrepreneur, and in the process owning your life instead of the business owning you. And that book has been huge for me because I was a solopreneur for years aside from our distributor and franchise team. And so that's been a big step in the last year to make that transition and get to the entrepreneur role instead of being a technician or more of a manager in my companies.
Yeah, and of course I have read those first 2 books, but that last one I have not read. It's been recommended so many times, and I have it on my list. I just have to get a hold of it and get through it. But I will have the links to all of those books, and you should have the Bible, and you can find the Bible actually. There's an app for that that you can get through, and even audio version. So I will have the links for all of that in the show notes. So as we mentioned before, at the end of our 12-month anniversary, Men of Abundance, we are going to donate a portion of what revenue we do have to various charities. And I always afford my guests the opportunity to mention a charity that we would be able to give to on your behalf.
Yeah, Wally, I'm actually on the board of directors of an organization called Kids Across Cultures. And essentially we do work in different parts of the world helping bring about, true and long-term life change for kids and their families. Right now, we're doing the majority of that in Southwest China by providing clean water to neighborhoods and very, very remote villages in that part of the country. Most of these folks have never had clean water in their life. So not only have we done well projects, but we also do provide water filter systems for the homes in those areas. One filter that costs about $75 total, provides clean water for a family of 5 or 6 for up to 5 years. And the ability for them to no longer have to deal with waterborne illness and a lot of the complications from that truly allows these kids and their families to be able to live their lives to the fullest because they're not dealing with digestive issues and all that. I've spent, I've gone over to China several times in the last few years to help, and it's just amazing the relationships we've developed and the progress that we're seeing with something as simple as that.
That's amazing. I'll definitely take a look at that charity. I hadn't heard of that one or that program, and I'll definitely take a look at that. And I will have that listed in the show notes as well. That will be at menofabundance.com/018. So I have one last question for you before we close this up, Matt, and that is, what does living a life of abundance mean to you?
To me, Wally, it's about getting past just taking care of the basic necessities of life and having time and money abundantly to not only do what one believes God has them on this earth to do, but also to be able to give back in a multitude of ways to others around us that maybe, don't have the knowledge or the resources or the abilities for whatever reason. I spent so much time just paying the bills, and I had no time for anything else. But today, because we have a much more abundant life because of our business, we have the ability to give and to help many, many others along the way. And, that's what I really believe we're all here for, is to help one another and support one another.
Beautiful. Agreed. And when you say you have a much more abundant life today, where does that come from? Does that come from the time freedom, or just not necessarily the time freedom, but the flexibility that may give you? Or does that come from the financial increase in your household?
Well, the financial leads to the time freedom, right?
Right.
So I think it's a combination of both. But to be honest, money's never been a big thing for me. I drive a car that's got, almost 300,000 miles on it. Yeah, I may have something a little nicer someday that's not quite as old used when I buy it. But, it's not about the acquiring of things as much as just having the resources so that you can come and go as you please and do what you want. My two oldest kids, my son has been away at college for a couple of years. My second and oldest daughter goes to school for the first time here in a couple of weeks. And we've decided we're going to take a family vacation this next week before the kids head out. And now that my son is done with a college class here locally that he just finished up yesterday, well, just to be able to go and do that, to be able to travel, to network and to spend time with people like yourself and at events and conferences and that type of thing. I always had to pick and choose between one or the other when I was working for someone else. But when you have time freedom, you don't have to choose anymore. And so to be able to do that, to be able to do the things I've been able to do overseas, etc., I think that's what I'm really driving at, with all that.
No, and that's exactly what I was getting at, and that's what Men of Abundance is all about, and the message that I'm trying to send, in that it really is not about the money. I've talked to people who are multimillionaires. I've talked to people who are earning $80,000 a year, and they just absolutely love their life. It's all about, but both of them have some sort of a residual type, not a residual income, but a passive income they put time into, but they can put the time in when they want, how they want, and wherever they're at. And it gives them that flexibility and that freedom. And that's the point I was trying to get at, is it's not about stuff. It's about collecting experiences, not stuff. And that's what it sounds like you're doing.
Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful. So leave us with a parting piece of guidance and any way that we can get back in touch with you other than the ebook that you've already shared with us.
I would just say, once again, get started, guys, and don't sell yourself short. We still live in the greatest country on the planet with the most opportunity, and we all need to take advantage of it more so than we do. And otherwise, of course, folks already have the URL for download. If they want to just reach out via email to start to talk or have questions about just vending in general or whatever, they can just email me at matt, M-A-T-T, at ssvbusiness.com.
Beautiful. Awesome, Matt. I truly appreciate your time and all the information you shared with Men of Abundance. I'm pretty sure somebody's going to take you up on that email. And if you don't, Men of Abundance, seriously, at least download the ebook. I'm certainly going to download the ebook for my own knowledge. If I wasn't already engaged in so much stuff I got going on right now, it would be something I would go after. But my wife will just look at me cross-eyed. And I don't blame her. She keeps me grounded. I just try to get too involved in too many things. And I'm very intrigued with the vending business. So, Matt, I appreciate your time and have an awesome day, man.
Yeah, Wally, you too, man. God bless.
Men of Abundance, I hope you got as much out of that conversation as I did. Every time I have a conversation with guys like Matt and all the other guests, I just learn so much and I get so much more pumped up for who we are as men and what we can do for our families and for our community. It's just an amazing experience to be able to talk to all of these guys and have these conversations and then send them out to all of you. And if you get as much out of these conversations as I do, be abundant in your life today and share this information with all of the men in your circle. All you have to do is send them to menofabundance.com and let them choose which platform they want to listen on. They can either listen directly on the website or any of the other feeds that they can choose to listen to Men of Abundance from. Or if you're listening to this right now on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher, then you can share directly from your mobile device or from your computer. It is greatly appreciated. And the reason why this is so important is because more men will be able to listen to this podcast and get out of it what you're getting out of it. And by you sharing this show, it makes Men of Abundance more searchable when men are looking for things like abundance and the other topics that we're talking about on this show. All right, that's all I have for you today, Men of Abundance. Now go out and live your life of abundance, and don't forget to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.